morning, all in Living Labs in Australia. We welcome you from Brussels, the European Network of Living Labs headquarters. My name is Zsuzsanna Bódi. I'm the Association Manager of the European Network of Living Labs, working closely with our President, Tuija Hirviskowski, and the Council.
And this is Paolo Aversano, working at the European Network of Living Labs as Network Manager. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning and welcome, and thank you so much for coming to join our webinar and tell people a bit about Living Labs and ENoLL. So let's start off with the question that sometimes people find the hardest, but maybe the most important. What is a living lab, and what do you think are its key attributes?
Well, I can do it, but I will introduce the topic by actually reading from one of our publications what is the definition that we are giving about living labs. And I read that living labs indeed refer to user-centered open innovation ecosystems that are based on a systematic user co-creation approach, integrating research and innovation processes in real-life communities and settings. So if we look at this definition, I think there are all the keywords that characterize what a living lab normally does. There is the user-centered component, so the fact that in living labs innovation happens with the strong and continuous help of users. It's an open innovation ecosystem because living labs were born in the open innovation field, and they are one of the main actors in this area. Indeed, as I was saying before, living labs are based on the systematic use of co-creation approaches. So there again, innovation happens in a co-creative manner. And actually, it's an innovation concept where research and innovation are talking to each other, so to speak, and are collaborating towards common goals. And this links to a concept that we will probably discuss later on that is very important to ENoLL at the moment, the concept of quadruple helix innovation. So this fact that innovation doesn't happen into one single how to say, social category, so to speak, but it's a social process where different actors are involved. And into that context, indeed, research and innovation are actors that collaborate to each other. So you see that, I mean, the definition in itself may sound sometimes complex, but to me it mainly links to two macro categories. So the involvement of users, of people, saying it more clearly, into the innovation process, and the quadruple helix idea. So the fact that the innovation happens with the collaboration of people, of public bodies, of private companies, and of academia, of research. So the dialogue, the collaboration between all these actors aims to produce better innovation, and living labs try to do that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to highlight this multidisciplinary approach, and that really living labs and the living lab experts are the ones who are bridging the gaps between the different stakeholders. And for me also, I can always see two clear paths. One path of the labs is to really realize social innovation, social inclusion in their local environment. But there is also a business aspect. So it's a very interesting method to look at for companies, how to have safe entry to market, to realize rapid prototyping for certain products or services. And then going beyond, because most of the time it starts from a local micro or meso environment, but then with the help of such a network as ENoLL, for instance, or just to have peer connections between these labs, you can go to a transnational and then global level.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what makes living labs, say, different from other innovation sort of settings.
I would use the living lab term as an umbrella term, because we also embrace all the other initiations like Fab Labs, Maker Labs, everywhere where users are becoming the actors, not the factors of innovation. Why living labs? Well, it's also true that the term is used sometimes not necessarily the right way, but we don't really criticize that. It's really about putting the focus on the end user, and ideally making them as the ideator, the starter, the booster of the innovation process and development.
I agree.
When you say not used the right way, could you give an example of what you mean?
Well, some time back, I think living labs were more referred to the so-called test beds. So very technical and technology-driven solutions. Today we also have these kind of labs. I just encountered and met some field labs which are really close, which are established close to industrial or manufacturing spaces, and those are really focusing about fast prototyping, but the user most of the time meets with the product only after there is a prototype available or ready. And what else I say is that in many cases, I think this label is used also when we in our scope it's not a qualified living lab. As you know, but maybe the audience doesn't know, ENoLL is rather strict how to label a living lab. So not everybody can get this famous yellow stamp because there is a strict evaluation system or process behind. So also when I refer to the term not used in the right way, it means that many living labs who call them living labs not necessarily went through on this qualification process. And it doesn't mean that they don't innovate, not at all. Maybe it's even a more developed version. It just means that to our standards, it not necessarily qualifies.
So I fully agree with what Zsuzsanna was saying. So I just add that what ENoLL tries to do, since the living lab concept is relatively new, to sort of standardize it, so to speak, which means giving some categories that allow understanding what is a living lab and what is not a living lab. So this is one of the tasks that are actually run by our office and by our network.
Yes, and also there are current projects, different projects, which we aim to have about mapping the different kind of labs and to find the synergies, because we really believe that this knowledge is complementary. So we are definitely not competing. We rather want to find allies and to make Europe and then not only Europe, but beyond Europe more competitive and transfer. So